Honourable Member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, honourable colleagues, there is good reason to be pleased with the 2014 Economic Action Plan. Our hard work is paying off, it's paying dividend, and we're on track to realize a stronger and more prosperous Canada in the coming years. When I was elected in 2011, the global economy was still fragile, following the 2008 Great Recession. It was a time of continued economic uncertainty, both south of the border in the United States, around the world, and at home. Our economy, while it was better than most, was still sluggish. Indeed, voters in my riding of New Brunswick Southwest, which borders Maine and shares waterways with the United States, were well aware of the economic challenges facing U.S. workers and the U.S. government. A majority recognized our economy was stronger and our outlook even then was brighter. And today, the results of several Conservative budgets under this government has created 1.2 million net new jobs since the economic downturn. I should say, actually, government has not created those jobs, but perhaps worked to create the condition for the hard-working men and women across the country, businesses, small and large, to together working in the national interest to create those 1.2 million jobs. And today, our government foundation is strong. We have competitive tax rates, and we're marching towards a balanced budget. And overall, it's very fair to say that we have strong economic fundamentals. We've done all this while maintaining transfers to the provinces and territories, which will continue to rise every year to a new record high. We've helped vulnerable families with children and seniors by taxing them less and ensuring important social programs and transfers are maintained and even enhanced. And we've done this all along while the Liberals and NDP opposition have called for higher taxes and more debt spending. Under our plan, 1 million Canadians have been removed from the tax roll, including 380,000 seniors. I'm going to repeat that. 1 million Canadians are no longer paying federal income tax. 1.4 million Canadians are no longer living in poverty, including 250,000 children. And after-tax disposable income has risen by 10% across all income levels since 2006. These are real, measurable benefits that have helped Canadians from coast to coast. Of course, there are ongoing challenges, and in some parts of Canada, including my region, unemployment remains stubbornly high. But recently, the federal government ratified an agreement with the provincial government of New Brunswick to deliver skill trainings for in-demand professions through the Canada Jobs Grant. We remain focused on job creation and ensuring the nation's economic fundamentals are strong and will continue to move the country forward. And we should take great solace that, according to the New York Times, Canada's working families are at the top of the pack compared to other nations. This is remarkable news. And of course, this is unpleasant news for the opposition, and in particular the leader of the third party, who has attempted to depict a worsening situation for Canadians. And in the end, the facts just don't bear that argument out. On that score, it was with great regret that I read today that the new Liberal Premier in my home province is moving to stop the fracking of natural gas in New Brunswick. This decision will slow economic growth. It will hurt job creation and cause more young workers to go west. Towns will continue to empty out, and there'll be less money for important social programs. And so Premier Gallant is already calling for Ottawa to throw him a lifeline. He wants more transfers. That's right. He is closing the development of natural gas in New Brunswick, yet insisting more tax revenues earned by other provinces that do frack natural gas be sent to his government. If it weren't so cruel, we'd note the deep, deep irony of sending New Brunswick workers to work in the very same industry Premier Gallant is closing. But I digress, Mr. Speaker. Well, back to the matter of hand, which is the 2014 Economic Action Plan. Our work, which has been ongoing and over many years, continues in this Budget Implementation Act. It began with Ottawa first looking internally, reviewing programs to ensure they delivered value for Canadians and Canadian taxpayers. As a result, direct program spending has fallen for 3 consecutive years, and we're on track for a 4th year, which I believe is a first in modern Canadian history. At the end of the day, this means we are delivering quality social programs, we're maintaining transfers to the provinces, we're delivering some tax relief, and we're doing it all within, as of next year, a balanced budget. We've also reformed programs to take into account demographic changes, and we've made modest changes to EI in order to encourage more work and less reliant on the state. This has all been hard work. I don't think there's been a riding in the country that has not been affected in some way or other by some of these changes. But they resulted in a number of things. They've resulted in a stronger federal balance sheet. They've resulted in a stronger national economy. And they've resulted, I think, in better fortunes for Canadians in the years ahead. And I stress the hard work because I know it's been said time and time again. It will continue to be said, I think, right up until the election next year. Budgets do not balance themselves. They require hard work. If you believe budgets balance themselves, I'd ask you to consider Greece, Detroit, or even Canada in the mid-1990s. However Mr. Chrétien and Martin qualify their efforts at the time, they certainly, I'm sure, would not say the federal budget balanced itself. Promoting jobs and economic growth has been our #1 focus for the last 3.5 years, and will continue to be our focus going forward until every Canadian that wants a job has a job. We've done this through support for businesses by reducing red tape, making it easy for them to invest, hire, and sell their products. We've frozen the EI tax, and we provided EI payroll tax savings for small businesses through the Small Business Job Credit. We're supporting apprenticeship and training programs, and we've also expanded our infrastructure programs. We've done this through the new Building Canada plan, which will provide $21.8 billion over 10 years to the gas tax fund, and that incidentally has been indexed, meaning as inflation goes up, our municipalities across the country will see modest increases every year to account for that inflationary loss. We're spending $10.4 billion over 10 years under the GST rebate to municipalities, again ensuring that when they spend money, it's going to benefit their constituents. And finally, we're spending $14 billion under the new Building Canada Fund to support major projects right across this country. This is real spending that's going to have a benefit on communities from coast to coast and ensure that infrastructure is upgraded so our products can get to market, our men and women can get to work, and products, whether they're coming across land, by air, or by sea, are able to get across this continent to markets in the United States, within Canada, or overseas. And of course, the budget also has to be taken in context with our overall trade agenda, where we're seeing greater market access, and we will see greater market access in Asia and in Europe. And that's something I talk about an awful lot when I'm home, because for many of the industries in New Brunswick, it's closer to major markets in Western Europe than it is to Western Canada. And if you're selling something like live lobster, you want to be able to get that to market while the product is alive and fresh. The other area we focused in on is, of course, responsible resource development. And we'll continue to do that through, I hope, the Energy East pipeline throughout the entire country, and in particular into the St. John refinery in New Brunswick, as a way to ensure that more hardworking New Brunswick men and women have jobs right there in the home province. That when they get up in the morning and go to work, they're able to come home at night and spend time with their families, as opposed to have to travel across the country for work. Work that we could be doing and should be doing in New Brunswick, whether it's building a pipeline, refining oil, or fracking natural gas. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, these measures have been that we pursued have benefited Canadians, Canadian families, and I look forward to budget for 2015 to see that balanced budget and the additional opportunities that our future measures will take. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? Question come on side. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to resist commenting on the whole issue of a conservative balanced budget because they were able to turn a surplus budget, multi-billion-dollar surplus budget, into Canada into a deficit situation and have not yet had that surplus budget. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, or balanced budget, having said that, Mr. Speaker, one of the greatest travesties of this government over the last number of months has been their lack of a commitment to infrastructure in all regions of Canada, Mr. Speaker. They talk a big line in the sense they say, well, record high amounts in terms of billions going into infrastructure, but what they don't say is that that tap that flows the money doesn't occur this year, Mr. Speaker. They have put that off until future years, the bulk of that money. There's actually a 90% cut, and this is the question I have for the member. And that is, why does he believe that his own government has dramatically cut infrastructure spending for this fiscal year, estimated between 80% to 90% of an actual cut in infrastructure dollars that is flowing for this fiscal year?
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the previous infrastructure program ramped down, the new program is ramping up. And I hear a lot of talk in this chamber from the opposition about too few infrastructure dollars. But I have to say back home, when I talk to municipal leaders, they're very pleased with the changes we made to the gas tax transfer, which at one point doubled it, and then of course took the additional step this year to expand what would be eligible. So as a result, I have municipalities throughout my riding applying under that program to spend it in areas, infrastructure areas, that previously they couldn't do so. At the same time, they're putting in new applications for the Canada Building, the new Canada Building Fund that's going to see projects begin this year and every year going forward. You know, and on that note, I might just ask my honourable colleague back. On one hand, he talks about the need to balance the books, but at the same time, he talks about the need to constantly spend more. And I'd ask, well, what is it? Is it a question of balancing the budget? Is it a question of spending more? We believe you can do both if you're responsible and you make tough choices.
Questions and comments? Question come on side. The honourable parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member, my colleague, for that very thoughtful speech that speaks to spoke to the benefits of this budget for Canadians across this country, Mr. Speaker. I've heard the Liberal member ask the question and make comments with respect to balanced budgets. Of course, I think everybody in the House knows when we voted to stimulate the economy with some $62 billion, the Liberal Party knew very well at that time that we were going to be operating in a deficit situation. But, Mr. Speaker, we're out of that situation now. We're working towards a balanced budget. The member that gave the speech spoke very eloquently about the gas tax refund money and how that is benefiting municipalities in his particular riding. Certainly that is predictable funding that local municipal councils can use to upgrade facilities and parks and so forth. Could he perhaps expand a little bit on the importance of that predictable funding to the municipalities in his riding?
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest. You have just a little over a minute.
Thank you. Well, predictable funding is key to ensure that other levels of government can rely on that funding year in and year out in order to plan around it, whether they're planning a one-off project or a project over many years, which tends to be the case when you're talking larger infrastructure. But I'm going to give another example where predictable funding has been very, very helpful. Since 2006, our time in office, federal transfers to the province of New Brunswick, my home province, have increased by 27%, and this year stand at $2.6 billion, which is a very good amount of money for a small province like New Brunswick. The point I want to make here is that under our government, every year, those transfers for health, social services, and equalization have gone in one direction, and that's up. We've managed to do this while we've looked at Ottawa's operation. We've reduced spending that was not in the public interest or not in the taxpayers' interest. And again, at the same time, and in a parallel with the question for municipalities, this has ensured that the province of New Brunswick can guarantee quality social programs going forward, and is unlike the changes that the Liberal opposition made in their time in power when they cut health and education by 30%.